Good evening, and welcome to this meeting of the Corporate Performance and Budget Scrutiny Committee. I'm Councillor Will Adams and I'm Chair of the committee. We have committee members in the Civic Centre along with officer support. The meeting is being live streamed via YouTube and will be available on the Council's website also. Some housekeeping for those in the Civic Centre. There are no fire drills planned, and if the alarm does go off, please leave by the emergency exits at the back of the room and congregate on the car park. Can I please ask you to turn your mobile phones off and switch your microphones off when not speaking? For those joining us via Microsoft Teams, please remain muted and indicate at the appropriate time when you would like to speak, and I will bring you in. We will now move on to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence.
Chair, we've got apologies from Councillor Nicky Peat. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. And we send our best wishes to Councillor Peat as well. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded to declare any interest that they may have. Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. For purposes of clarity, I am a cabinet member at Lancashire County Council, and there is some crossover between the roles of the Borough Council and the County Council, particularly with regard to item 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. That's noted. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting. Members are asked to approve the minutes of the last meeting held on Tuesday, the 20th of February.
Move those, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. Seconded. Thank you, Councillor Pillinger. Councillor Foster.
Point of clarity, I was actually attended this meeting in the audience and it's not noted within the minutes as under other members. If they could be amended, please.
Yep. Confirm that you were here and we will make sure they're amended. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item 4, recommendations update. Members are asked to provide any comments on the update and agree that any accepted and approved be removed. Okay. Thank you. Item 5, Q3 Performance Monitoring Report 23-24. We have the leader of the council, Councillor Paul Foster, who will present this report, supported by Caroline Wolfenden, Director of Change and Delivery. And can I welcome Caroline to her first scrutiny meeting. Can I please invite the leader of the council to provide a brief introduction to the report? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and good evening, everybody. I do intend to be brief as usual, and then just open up to any questions, wide-ranging questions that you and your committee may have, Chair. So basically, this is the report for Q3, 1st of October to the 31st of December 2023. Historically, it tends, Chair, to be the quieter of the quarters with the Christmas and New Year break. There's much detail within the report. I just wish to draw your attention to the 2 amber-rated projects, which are regarding the progress of the Leyland Town deal, Chair, under a fair local economy that works for everyone. Remember, this is a look back, and subsequently, since this report has been published, we have made significant programme with the land acquisitions, and all members had the opportunity at the last cabinet meeting for a confidential update on that, which I hope you all found helpful. And secondly, the other amber rated project is regarding the play areas. And you'll recall again through Cabinet that Cabinet didn't accept 2 of the procurement papers that came forward from officers for some more clarification surrounding the procurement exercises that had taken place. They've now been done. Cabinet has recently approved the play areas. I believe that the Longton sites will be completed in the summer, and I think the site at Penwitham is due for completion this month. Other than that, Chair, we're here for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. We will move straight into the questions then. Can I take you to page 17, paragraph 16? social prescribing. Please could you talk us through what is meant by being embedded, as this is quite a bold statement for a project that only started last summer. And if so, what are the plans for the future?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So this is critically important to us. Remember that the social prescribers are something that the South Ribble has brought on ourselves and we fund. And what we mean by embedding is embedding them in with the likes of the other key stakeholders, for example, DWP, the Citizens Advice Bureau, our homelessness team, and the NHS and other services, Chair. When we say embed, it means that we are referring directly and straight away to our partners. And what we're also seeing is instant results, where there's an overwhelming number of individuals getting support now really quickly, where in the past they may have spent quite some considerable time attempting to locate and find this support as they need. Clearly, with the cost of living pressures that everybody's under at the moment, the homelessness side of things that we'll hopefully come to discuss later as well, that they are facing some significant challenges. So when I say it's embedded, I mean it's working.
Thank you for that. I would like to come back in terms of I did attend one of the roadshow events where there was some social prescribers who I must say were doing some fantastic work in terms of the people that are supporting. Do we think that there's going to be an increased need for this moving forward? And if so, what impact does that have on this council, not just from a monetary point of view, but also extra resources?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's a really good question, because I think that the simple answer to your query is yes, we are expecting the demand on that service to increase. And then it's for us as an authority and as executive to ensure that we can deliver what's required from our community. We're expecting matters in the short to medium term not to ease in these particular areas. You know yourself, the pressures that the health service is under, the cost of living crisis isn't going to get better any quicker. And clearly the demands on homes and homelessness is another area that we're not expecting in the short term to see any improvements whatsoever. We are constantly speaking with the officers, and we are committed to ensuring that if the extra resource was required in that area, then that extra resource would be found.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pillinger.
If you can move on to the next paragraph, paragraph 17 about the Family Wellbeing Centre. It says it's expected to be complete in January. Presume that happened, but you might be able to comment on that. The reference is being made to leases. What are these, and could they not have been negotiated earlier? And finally, what tangible results and outcomes are you expecting from that project?
So thanks, Councillor Pillinger. So the issue of the leases has been sorted, and what we're looking to do here, we're not just looking to provide the facility, we're also looking to ensure that the facility is sustainable. And therefore, as part of the decision that the Cabinet and the Council made, we're subsidising the lease for a period to allow it to become self-sustainable. So we're going to support with the utilities and the rents, and then help the individuals that are running the facility to then go out and find additional grant funding, which, if you remember, was always, once they had a base where they could work from, where they were registered, that was supported by the local authority, it's much easier to bring in additional resource, particularly capital resource, to support the facility. It is open now, and I'd urge you to go down and have a look. It's wonderful. And what it does, it provides that early intervention for young families and babies and children. And it's also quite humbling, because on one side of it, there's actually a baby food bank, believe it or not, where the team there are providing the necessities for newborn babies to be nutrition to eat. And there's all sorts of additional support in there. There's clothing in there, Pete. There's furniture in there for the young babies to be comfortable. And the demand is high. The demand is really high, and although it's based in South Ribble, it serves neighbouring boroughs as well, so Preston and Chorley as well. They have prescribers that's prescribed to there as well, and it's as we always say, it's nobody's turned away. But please go down, have a look. the demand, as I say, is already really high, but it's a wonderful facility, and the team there are really, really, really pleased with what's been delivered.
Councillor Howarth.
In the same paragraph, you've made reference to the community assets framework. What are the aims of this framework? What assets will be a part of it? And how do you envisage the council helping them?
It's about, Councillor Howarth, with the framework, getting the best utilisation of all our assets, be it income generation or community use. And so the framework isn't, I understand that it's not quite finished yet. It's within the portfolio of Councillor Tomlinson now as part of the detailed assets review that we're undertaking. But we want a formal framework so that we're not making ad hoc policy decisions for the different use of different facilities. And also when it comes to charging rates, the utilisation of the facilities, and how we can, our community and our key stakeholders can also use those facilities as well, the public facilities after all. And so the framework's been developed to bring it all together. And then hopefully, when that starts being reported upon to the committee, you can then obviously scrutinise that to make sure that we are best using our assets across the board.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. Moving on to paragraph 18, the next paragraph about the cost of living action plan. How much of the funding for the schemes outlined are provided by external bodies such as the County Council, and how much is by South Ribble? And how sustainable is the funding for these schemes once the recently announced in the budget 6-month extension is over? And how does demand compare with the funding available?
I'll start with the last question. The demand always outstrips what we can provide. Again, one of the things that we do uniquely, I think, in South Ribble, if you remember, we did develop our Holiday Hunger programme to start with, and then the HAF programme then through the pandemic has developed. And so there's a huge demand, an absolutely huge demand for it, Hayden. And one of the issues for an incumbent government is to ensure that this funding continues, because it's feeding and giving opportunities to young children through the holiday period. And we've got so much evidence that suggests and supports that is desperately needed for the families and the children themselves. The funding is taxpayers' money. So the funding comes down from government and it's distributed by Lancashire County Council to the district councils, and we deliver the schemes. And as I say, we've been doing this for about 3 or 4 years now. It was a development, as I say, of the Holiday Hunger programme. But again, in South Ribble, we don't turn anybody away. So if some of the young children and families don't necessarily meet the criteria exactly, if there is availability, which there sometimes is, we take those children on as well.
Councillor King.
Yes, thank you. Please can I take you to page 18, paragraph 25, just on the basic skills training. So we've seen a bit of a trend of delay with this indicator in previous quarters. Please can you clarify what the delay is, and is there any learning for when we are developing the performance indicators in future?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor King. No, I think with this, the performance indicator is right, and it isn't performing as well as it should. And there's 2 particular issues we have there, is that we're using 2 external partners, and the reporting from the external partners isn't maybe as robust and as quick as we'd like it. So what's happened is we know, for example, that far more individuals have undertaken the digital inclusion training, but we haven't yet got the data back to report on to you. So that's something I know Caroline and the team are working on closely at the moment. And it's like all things, we work with so many different partners work in different ways. And it's just trying to get us to work in the most efficient way so that we can accurately report back the progress that we're making. But that's why the KPI is there, to show that the reporting and the of that individual skills training isn't up to date, and we're working hard to get it up to date. But I can confirm that additional training has taken place, we just haven't got the data.
That's fine, and I appreciate, obviously, you're trying to provide us with the information that you have to hand. One thing I would ask is just when we do get all the information, can we have that brought to this committee so we can see how it actually has performed once all the data's came in?
Councillor Green.
Chairman, evening Councillor Foster, and welcome Caroline. Look forward to seeing you at many future meetings as well. Can I take you to page 20, please, paragraph 26, and there's a reference there to the new customer relationship management system, or CRM. Could you give us an outline, please, of what timescales were involved in procuring this system, and what difference ultimately will our residents and other customers see?
Yes, I'm going to swiftly, Councillor Green, good evening yourself, pass you on to Caroline. That's a very technical query, but if we don't have the answers for you now, we'll clearly write to you as a committee with them. Yeah, I'd say that, Caroline.
I don't actually have the answer right now, but I will take that away and come back with a response.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Howarth.
Quite a short one, really. Printing strategy. This was agreed at Cabinet last year. Please could the next performance report include an update on what the strategy has actually achieved? Or where we're at now. So.
Absolutely, and there's quite the print strategy was quite wide ranging in what it was looking to achieve, Councillor Howarth, but clearly we'll have the data on the number and amount of additional printing that has taken place, and I've said this and I'll continue to say this: any member of this council that has specific needs, it was within the policy that requires paper copies, and they're absolutely entitled to receive the paper copies. But fundamentally, the local authority has spent in excess of £1 million of taxpayers' money on the equipment that you see here to try and, wherever possible, make us paper free. If you recall back about 18 months, 2 years ago as well, the Information Commissioner was not just with our authority, but up and down the country, was looking at more secure ways to share confidential information as well. And it was deemed that the most appropriate way for all members to be furnished with confidential information was through the ModGov app that has been developed. It's real life data, and as I say, it's a method of retaining that confidentiality as well. But we'll happily report back at the end of Q4, which is obviously the next report on where we're up to with the print strategy.
Can I just take you to page 20, paragraph? Sorry, Councillor Green.
Sorry, Jim. Yeah, if I could just comment at that point. Sorry if I misheard you, Councillor Foster, but did you say we'd spent £1 million on iPads and other equipment to allow councillors to access things digitally, or is that much wider than that?
So if you recall, it's across the board on IT equipment everywhere, of which the iPads were one. So you'll notice that it was a strategy I think Councillor Watkinson took through about 18 months ago. So it was the wholesale replacement of IT throughout the council, ranging from telephones to iPads to servers to printers, everything that you've seen that's got replaced in the last 2 years. And you remember, particularly with IT, you've got to have a constant evolving, and it also included software as well. You must keep with the times, and so that there's just the figure wasn't iPads in particular, it was across the board on the development of hardware and software for the authority and the website.
Can I take you to page 20, paragraph 27? That's looking at the early years task group, which has been recently formed. Can you please talk us through the aims and objectives of the early task group, and what outcomes would you like to see? And particularly like to know how engaged are our other partners, such as the County Council. So
you recall I used to sit on the partnership up until about 6 months ago. Councillor Claire Hunter now represents the South Ribble on the partnership, but the partnership critically is linked in with Lancashire County Council and the NHS and other key stakeholders. And what we understood, particularly post-COVID, Chair, was that the early years intervention was something that wasn't perhaps as good as it should be nationally. And so we had a lot of data from the NHS that pointed us in the direction of quite a few hotspots within the borough and more wider within Chorley as well. So the intervention is everything that we discussed earlier, for example, around the family wellbeing centre in Lostock Hall, and it was the evidence base that we got through the work that they're doing at the partnership that supported our intervention with Tippy Toes and the team in Lostock Hall. There's an awful lot going on. I know there's a huge demand, and it is focusing the efforts of the partnership at the moment. And it's maybe something that you may wish to look at in more detail, Chair, and we can invite Councillor Hunter to come along and give a more detailed update.
Yeah, I think it'd be quite useful to see some of that data. I'm not asking for all of that in the performance report, but I think it would be useful to see some of that so we can quantify it as well.
What may be helpful, Chen, I think I might have mentioned this before, but one of the next meetings we have here, we could ask that some members of the team come down and give you a demonstration of the dashboard and the level of data that we're holding, which is helping set the priorities, because it is a very powerful tool, and I think it might help the committee for background information to see the level of finite detail that we get and how we then use that detail to prioritise our resources in the borough and then wider with our key stakeholders and partners. So we're more than happy to facilitate that presentation to you all.
Thank you. I think we can put that in the recommendations as well, please, Darren. Councillor Williams.
Going back to page 20, paragraph 29, there's reference made to improvements to the civic centre. What progress has been made on this project? And obviously there's quite a large sum agreed in the budget going to be used for. What timescales are involved and when will there be a return on investment?
Thanks, Councillor Williams. So there's 2 or 3 different strands to this. One is that and they're in no particular priority. One, we want to generate more income from the civic centre by renting out the space to key stakeholders. There is partners. There is a demand, a big demand, and we need to utilise that more to bring revenue in. The challenge we have here, and it's very much in front of you this evening, is that we use this room for all our main committee meetings as well, and that proves challenging because it means any time that we're using it for meetings, for council meetings, we can't rent the space out. When it comes to things like council meetings as well, the chamber ends up getting set up fully the day before. You have the council meeting on the Wednesday and then it gets stripped out on the Thursday. So for every council meeting, we've basically got 3 days of, you could argue, loss of potential revenue from renting out the civic, which isn't ideal. Secondly is this, which is the IT systems that we use in the Civic Centre for public meetings. And as you know now, we broadcast them all live on YouTube to allow as many members of our community that want to watch the meetings that they can. And you'll all be aware that that it's not performing particularly well, and it has been planned to be replaced for the last 18 months, 2 years. So what we're looking at is the feasibility and the possibility of giving a more reorganising the ground floor and having a more permanent chamber installed that frees up the space for additional revenue. There is a paper coming to Cabinet, I believe, if it's not the next Cabinet meeting, it's not, because that's next week. So it'll be the Cabinet meeting, the one after, with some recommendations for what we may look to do to the Civic Centre and how we can add additional revenue in. And I think the plan for that, if it is approved by Cabinet and Council, all the works would be completed towards the end of the summer. And also, while we're still looking at that, there's also a lot of unused space within the entire Civic Centre. And so we're looking to streamline that and look to see if there's additional revenue streams by renting out more of our space upstairs as well, Hayden. So this paper, as I say, is coming to Cabinet and Council in the next cycle, and that will answer, hopefully, a lot of the queries you've just raised.
Thank you. Councillor King.
So please can I take you to page 20, paragraph 29. So just on the other point other than the Civic Centre, it says that the plan is to continue to develop high quality and responsive council services, and this is progressing according to timescales and plan. However, on another line, it says that customer satisfaction is currently sitting below the target. So please can you confirm to me exactly what plan it is that is on target?
Thanks, Councillor King. So within the report as well, I think it does say the reason that the customer satisfaction data is slightly below the target is because it is a brand new KPI that has just been introduced, because basically it wasn't until about November, I think it was, that the telephone systems were all upgraded so that the customers, when they were speaking to us, it'd be tied in if it was an online contact as well, could leave their feedback. And so it's a very new KPI. And then basically the Civic Centre was shut down for 10 days as well. So there was a gap. So that's the reason why that's slightly below where we've targeted. What I'm hoping is when the next performance indicator report comes out in the next month or two, that's back up exactly where we want it to be, because it's had time to run for full 3 months. No, I think it was about 2 weeks or something, wasn't it, Caroline? Yeah. It was 2 weeks of data previously.
Councillor Pillinger on a similar topic.
Yeah, some of this may be already covered. In terms of the customer satisfaction, what questions are asked? Does the survey of customers give us any feedback that helps us improve our services? And are there any ways of measuring customer satisfaction other than those of those people who are accessing the customer service centre?
So obviously, as Councillor Foster has said, it's a very new survey. So there is some further development to do on it in terms of obviously the questions that we're asking our customers. I think at the moment, obviously, we ask whether they're satisfied with the service, but I don't think we're getting enough detail in terms of obviously the service that they've received and what, and where we could improve. So that is something that we're looking to do further work on, is developing that survey. So we're going to get some, really sort of like qualitative information that we can use to improve what we provide.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. The other way, I suppose, Pete, if you turn this on its head, it's not just the number of our residents that say they've had a positive experience. We then do review, Caroline and the team then do review any obviously complaints we receive separately, and we do look at them all in the round.
If I can just take that a bit further, I'm very much aware that people are more likely to, on their own initiative, give negative feedback than positive feedback. It's much more difficult to get positive feedback out of people. So how are we actually proactively seeking feedback in any way outside of the customer service centre from our residents? Yeah, so we do the resident survey, Pete, and that's based on a sometimes rather frustrating standard set of questions that the Local Government Association ask us to ask. And that happens usually annually, the resident survey, and clearly we track that data and trend as well. And I can absolutely say if there's any outcomes and reports associated with the resident survey would come to this committee as well for you to look at.
Councillor Pillinger.
Sorry.
Sorry, Caroline.
Just on the resident survey, yes, so obviously that takes place every 2 years. We've just recently done one, and we just got the report back, the draft report. So my team are just obviously going through that data, and obviously the results will be shared in due course. But we obviously through that survey we focus on the local area, and we've asked our residents about other things like that they're happy about in terms of like council and the service that they receive from us. So that all that information is gotten through the resident survey.
For somebody who's so new to post, you seem to have got your head around things.
Councillor Pillinger.
If we can turn on to paragraph 33, which is on page 22, which is about the business energy efficiency scheme. It seems from previous updates that that's quite challenging, getting businesses to access these grants. Do we know what the barriers are for businesses, and is there any way we could promote and assist more?
Thanks, Peter. I haven't got all the data with me, but my understanding of this is it has been a little bit of a challenge because it's very much the local authority going out and offering this support. It's not something that the businesses are naturally applying to us for. It's for us and the business team to go out and offer that support. But then also when we are awarding grants as well, clearly, as you understand, because it's public money, there's then a process to go through for application. We do require data. And it's my understanding we have tried and attempted to streamline this somewhat as well. But again, we'll get a note to the committee with an update on that if you wish.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the figures with 91 active applicants and grant offers made to 10 businesses, I can see the difficulties that we're obviously having. And it may be that those who designed the scheme initially need to look at it, but it will be a shame if the money is not able to be used where it's meant to be.
I agree, but it's dotting the I's and crossing the T's, Pete. And, with any grant funding that we offer, if we didn't follow due process, I'm sure your sister committee in the governance committee would have something to say about that. So we're just trying to be thorough, but that doesn't mean that we're happy with that. So we need to streamline it, and we are working actively with the businesses to get the money to them and other advice. It's just not always about grant funding.
Thank you. Can I take you to page 22, paragraph 34, looking at the skills factory? Is there any way in which the skills, apologies. I think, first of all, I think it's important to note there's some very good results in there in terms of the work that's already been done in the skills factory. But I'd like to know, is there any way in which the skills factory could target and do more work with those not in education, employment or training, or otherwise known as NEETs, which is outlined on page 24. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. You'll recall when we had the last meeting, we raised this about nationally the young people. There's more inactive young people now post-pandemic than there has been historically, and it's a concern for us. And I do know very much that the task group, that's their consideration, but we can't do it in isolation. So we are working wherever possible with key stakeholders to target them, and we do have the data, and this is again something that the South Ribble Partnership is looking at with us as well. It's an issue, and it's an issue that government and local government really do need to target now and give these young people opportunities. A lot of the young people just want the opportunity, so they're very much geared around looking at that now. And as I said, it is a priority, and that's something that the South Ribble Partnership is looking at.
Thank you. I've got a question in a few questions' time about it, so I might as well ask it now. What do we think has driven up the alarming uplift? And obviously you've mentioned COVID already and the challenges that brings. But yeah, I suppose why do we think it's the uplift has been there? And I suppose what are we as a council going to do about it?
It's a very good question, Chair, isn't it? We've said before, haven't we? This is one of those key performance indicators that the council report upon, but very much we're not in control of our own destiny with this. It's because it's not one of our statutory functions to deliver. It's more the Department for Education and others. But it clearly is, and I think it's even been in the national media, hasn't it? It is a challenge at the moment, and I don't actually fully understand what the answer is to it, well, ultimately, other than we know nationally we have a challenge with young people, an opportunity, and I think it's down for all of us, local government, central government, and all our key stakeholders to really pump some resource in here to understand what's creating that situation with our young people find themselves in, and what can we do to encourage them and give them the opportunity that they need to move forward. But it's one of those alarming indicators that is most certainly on the rise.
Sorry, Chair, can I just come in on that?
Please do, Caroline.
The Councillor Foster says, as he said, it's, you know, the responsibility of LTC, but we are doing a lot of work already in the district, you know, through the Skills Factory. You mentioned that before. We did the Apprenticeship Week, which was, you know, supporting national apprenticeships, and that was really successful. And then we're doing lots of other work as well in terms of supporting wider initiatives around like mental health and things like that, which I know has been raised like as a concern by members. So there's lots of work going on around that to support our young people.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Councillor Foster, this is a question which I asked you at a recent council meeting, so it's a similar theme. So could you update us, please, with regard to the town deal, page 22, paragraph 35. Could you update us on the discussion with the market traders regarding any temporary moves and the assurance that you gave that they will be offered alternative accommodation whilst the works are taking place? And secondly, when will the changes be communicated to elected members of this authority and, importantly, to local residents? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Green. So we have a meeting of the town board in the morning, 8 o'clock, and the officers are going to provide an update to the town board. We're in very advanced stages of negotiation now. Clearly, they're commercially sensitive, with an alternative location for the market on a temporary basis. As you can imagine, it is a challenge to and move a market for a period of 12 to 15 months. We're almost there. We're fully engaged with the market traders, as we said previously, where some of them may not wish to relocate and may wish just to go on a sabbatical for a period of 12 months. And we're not absolutely set on one solution here. There could be 2 or 3 different solutions for the different traders. We're hoping to have the negotiations concluded in the very short term now, and it's still the intention that the market will relocate by late summer for the wholesale refurbishment works to commence very early in the autumn. That is still the plan. And as I say, hopefully there'll be a paper update coming to council as soon as those commercial negotiations are at a position that we can release that information. As I say, it's sensitive at the moment, and it is a challenge to provide a suitable sized facility in the correct location, but we're almost there now, and we are in dialogue with them constantly.
Councillor Williams.
Going back to page 23, paragraph 4, so we're talking about the town deal again. Obviously, work has progressed significantly, and obviously this was based on obviously the last quarter. So how confident are we that the town deal will be completed by March 26? And how do members have an oversight and manage delivery of this project? And could future reports include more detailed performance information on major council projects such as this and Jubilee Gardens? I know we had the confidential update within the cabinet that was really good. That was good, but obviously that's like a one-off update. Can we have something on a bit more of a regular basis?
The simple answer is yes, of course you can. You know, we're here to provide whatever information you want for us to for scrutiny. The challenge with the town deal is the way that it's been structured, and with we've got the town deal advisory board head, and then we have the council as the accountable body, which provides its own challenges, as you know. We are making really good progress now, and yes, we're still down for a March 26 completion. You recall from the confidential update that you received that the programme of works was in there, and now that the works on the Iddens factory have almost fully complete with the demolition there, the procurement of the main contractors and the phasing, as you saw in that report, we are confident that by the summer the main contractors will be on site and you will start physically seeing the build like you are next door, and then the phasing of the public realm works. Remember, that is quite challenging because of the way that Huff Lane is has historically developed. There's a number of private landowners on the shop fronts, and so the team's working through something like 90 separate landowners as we speak to get the licenses in place, and they're making good progress on now. But as you can tell, it's quite a task to undertake. But we've by taking a step back in the autumn, we've taken 2 or 3 steps forward now, and we're confident we'll still hit the 26th deadline, and that's what the programme indicates. And the next significant phase is the procurement of the contractors and any minor tweaks we may or may not need to make to the planning consents.
Can I just quickly follow up on that? Obviously, the local residents around there. I think we've had discussions before. I know we had the commercially sensitive bit, and we're lucky we got sort of some information there. Obviously, the local residents haven't been communicated with that recently. Have we got a timescale as to when, this particularly the residents in the surrounding streets are severely affected by this? Have we got a sort of a timescale where we can actually present something tangible to them, just to let them know what's going on and timescales and things like that?
Yeah, so the comms, it's one of the discussion items tomorrow. The comms plan for the whole town development of the town is ongoing, and it's the next major comms phase is out to the local residents. You'll be aware, Hayden, I visited some myself a few weeks ago. Given the fact that the Eden's factory had been there for over 100 years, when it was eventually dropped, there was, it's quite a significant change. And so we did go and visit a few of the residents on the back streets and one of the on the back side, away from Huff Lane. And I know it's your ward, but the comms, the big comms push and update now is going to take place, and there is a plan, I believe, that particularly the residents all in the streets associated that border where the redevelopment works go, they'll be written to separately with the written update and showing the plans, and then there'll be a wider consultation and update on the website, and I'm hoping to get some boards put up in the town centre as well, so the passing footfall can see what we're planning to do.
Councillor Howarth.
Yeah, if I can take this is page 26, paragraph 49. This is a question about local play areas. And can I acknowledge, first of all, the success and the number of improvements to play areas that's already taken place. However, we seem to have slowed down for some reason. So could you possibly talk us through the reasons why there's been a delay in playground procurement and delivery, and what has been learnt for the future?
Yeah, thanks, David. Victim of our own success somewhat here, but what happened was with the 2 Longton schemes, the papers came forward to Cabinet for approval of the schemes, and we weren't satisfied. I think it was Councillor Belinsky-Gelder's portfolio at the time, weren't fully satisfied with the procurement exercise that had taken place, and we had some concerns that we thought needed addressing prior to Cabinet being able to approve them. So they were both delayed by one cycle of about 6 weeks, I think it was. But recall, subsequent to this paper, so in January, they were approved. So the 2 Longton schemes, as I mentioned earlier, they are planned to be those contracts have been awarded, and they will be delivered by the summer. I'll accept criticism that they're slightly delayed, but what I will say to the committee is that they're slightly delayed for the right reasons, and that we've got to ensure that all procurement within this authority is done properly and it offers best value for money. And so that's what created the delays. However, they've subsequently been dealt with, and I'm hoping that amber will be back to green, if not by the next report that you see. Certainly the Q1 report for 24 will definitely show you that they're back on track.
Councillor King.
Yeah, so can I take you to page 20, paragraph, go again. Please, can I take you to page 27, paragraph 53? So I know we've had quite a few back and forths in this place just about our friends at Active Health and the health screening. So I'm aware we're not tracking this again. So I just wanted to have one last attempt of having a conversation with you about it. So currently it says the number of individuals who've got health screened from Active Health is tracking 89% below target. Now, last time I think we had a discussion about this, you mentioned that this is because of a lack of funding now available from Europe. So can you confirm to me whether this council has the right to fund projects outside of its statutory duties?
I suppose, well, we could, if you had the available resources, you could look to fund anything, but fundamentally, it's Lancashire County Council, and I know it's Councillor Green's portfolio thing, the health and wellbeing. They're not funding it, and it's their statutory responsibility. But also, the reason they're not funding it is because the funding where that came from, which was the EU, has been cut. So we haven't got the funding grants being sent to us to keep that active programme going. What has happened is LCC had then introduced an alternative proposal and approach, which is around obesity and weight loss, which is where their priority has changed, and we're now receiving funding for that, and that is now the scheme that we're taking forward with our Active Health team.
So I have noticed you've not actually fully answered the question there. I asked whether we can fund things outside of our statutory duty. The answer to that is yes, because we fund all sorts of different things outside of our statutory duty. Name one example to be Longton Live, let's say. And also there was, within the budget, there was actually a set pot of money put aside for mental health services. Now, I actually went through the council website, had a little bit of a look when these active health screenings were first advertised, and it does specifically say that this is a tool to combine physical health assessments and the mental health element, which is fantastic because it takes a holistic approach, and we know that you improve your physical health, it has a good chance of improving your mental health. Why is this particular scheme not sufficient to get funding through that pot of money?
Thanks, Will. So the mental health initiatives, you'll be aware, we're still looking at and we still deliver. And this particular area of grant funding has been ceased. And therefore, the executive and the council have to make priorities. And so we make priorities, and where we can fund initiatives, we will fund the initiatives. Where we can't, we won't. And in conjunction with Councillor Green and the Health and Wellbeing team at Lancashire County Council, it has been decided that the priority is changing from the screening to doing significant work locally on obesity and health and wellbeing and weight loss. So we can target resources, we do target resources, but as you know, local government is under huge constraints with funding. And so we have to make priorities, follow through those priorities and deliver what we can within the budgets that we've been set.
I appreciate that, but also I'm sure you appreciate I'm questioning the leader of South Ribble Council, not of LCC. So I'm asking you in terms of funding that you can provide, hence why I'm saying there's a pot of money there for mental health services that we could utilise. There was something which was put forward to you in terms of an amendment, in terms of money that we can spend on health and leisure and sport in South Ribble. So going back to my original question, is it fair to say to you that this can be funded? It's just whether you, and in your words, you just said just there, whether it's a priority.
So I don't know if you're aware though, Will, that we're one of the few district councils in Lancashire that actually invest in an active health team within our council. Most local authorities don't have those within the district councils. We fund that. We see that as a priority because the active health team that we utilise here, that are our employees, we have out and about in all our schools and our communities doing a huge wide range of activities that other local authorities in Lancashire don't do. And we see that we get value from that for our communities, and they get value for it through health. But what I would say is I would happily fund more if the government gave us fair funding.
Okay, I don't think we're going to agree on this. I think I'll call it a day on this. But ultimately, I think you've admitted for yourself this can be chosen to be funded. There is pots of money available. It's not been prioritised.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Pillinger.
If you can go to page, it's the end of the table at item 5, page 31. And the third row from the bottom, number of households in temporary accommodation at the end of the quarter. It's one of those metrics where we are off track, but less than 5% off track, which we tend to accept to some extent. I'm looking at the figures. We seem to have been improving, but we're still outside of target. And there is going to be a scrutiny review group on homelessness, which I'm part of. And of course, we would hope that nobody was homeless. And when you walk down the banks of various canals and things in the area, I've walked past on footpaths, tents in the undergrowth where people are living outside of the normal things. But how can the scrutiny review help the Cabinet in this area? And could you take us through what's being done to reduce this indicator to closer to the levels that we'd like to see, or even above them? Well, it will be below them in this particular case.
As you know, Pete, we'd all love to see those numbers coming down and significantly, but they're just not. You'll be aware as a committee that we've overspent with additional resources to the tune of about £700,000 as a district council this year to date in the provision of homelessness support. And it goes on to what Will asked about where we prioritise our resources. With, as I say, £700,000 of it has gone to supporting people who are homeless. And that just indicates that these are the tough decisions that we have to make. The government themselves, you'll all be aware, the local government association, the district councils network, we've been hounding the Chancellor for additional support. There's some district councils who've seen 30, 40, 50% overspend of their entire revenue budget, Pete, on the provision of homelessness support. And the fact of the matter is it's the issues aren't getting any easier for anybody. One of the concerns we have as an authority is that the data that we're receiving currently is that the single biggest hike in mortgage rates for those coming off the old fixed rate, the low 1.5%, 2% rates up to nearer 5%, is now in this period between now and August and September. And the data then supports that generally even more people then present themselves as homeless. As that impacts and they can't get remortgages, it also fits into the discussion we've been having that there's just a chronic undersupply of homes to move people into social homes, council houses. Hence why we're trying to support that with the provision of the Jubilee Gardens next door. This is something that district councils and local authorities will not be able to deal with themselves, Pete. We need national intervention, and you could look at any local authority that we're all struggling, because what's compounding this as well with the lack of onward housing to support these individuals and families is the fact that the immigration issues that we have, and where those properties are also then being taken on by the likes of Serco and others for housing not our homelessness issues. Then we have the change in the legislation recently as well, where asylum seekers, once they are getting the leave to stay, we welcome them, but then they're no longer with the Home Office. They then present to us. They literally leave the Leyland Hotel and present to us. So it is a challenge. We need government support here, and we need a proper joined approach to all of it to try and help these poor peoples. But the concern is, and I think we're all acutely aware of this, that matters events are going to get worse before they get better.
Just come in, sorry.
Yes.
Just to obviously offer some assurance. So we had an update from our Director of Communities last week at our senior management team. So there was an updated report on temporary accommodation. So there's currently 42 households. So obviously that's slightly lower than the number that's in that report. So just to offer some assurance really that obviously there is work going on, working quite closely with Progress Housing, who are obviously our largest registered provider, and they're doing a lot of work with us around direct matches to really try and help us resolve this issue. So, hopefully that helps give a bit of assurance that we are.
If 42 is the current figure, then we're above target, well, below target, because I
think it does fluctuate,
yes.
Obviously, depending on but that was last week. Yeah.
So take that.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Howarth.
Just a very quick question on that. How many asylum seekers are really presenting themselves in South Ribble as homeless?
I haven't got the data to hand, but if they're given leave to remain, David, and there isn't accommodation, I can't remember the exact figures, it's either 7 or 14 days they have to leave the temporary facilities they're in, and if they're not furnished with a property via the Home Office scheme, then they present to us.
I mean, I don't dispute that is a factor, but I'm just wondering whether that is a factor in South Ribble. I should say you don't have the figures, so I don't know.
Well, we can get them, but we still have the hotel here, the Lane Hotel, still being used by Serco and the Home Office, and the problem's acute. So we can get the data, and we'll make sure the data's in the next report.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, just referring to page 32, the first row of the table, talking about disabled facilities grant. I know we've really have grabbed this one by the scruff of the neck, and we've made improvements to this. But the target of 167 days, whilst it is a target, is still a long time to wait. And obviously we are doing quite well against it with 112 days, but it's still a significant amount of time for somebody who's disabled to wait before they can access a disabled facilities grant. What more can we do to actually reduce this and actually bring this down even further?
Again, this, if you remember back about 12, it's the initial assessment that was there was a huge 18-month backlog, and this is again where I don't think the system works particularly well, because Lancashire County Council undertake the initial assessment, and then we, as a district authority, do any works that are required to the properties. What we did, we brought in our own assessors to do that. I don't know if you remember that, Hayden. We actually funded that and brought them in, and the backlog was reduced really, really quickly. But you're right, the 112 days, so the target 167 days, and we've got it down to 112, just seems absolutely far too long, doesn't it? And it's something that we constantly do look at. But what I can tell you is it's getting better. We've had a significant improvement in the awarding of these grants over the last 6 months, and where we can improve, we'll continue to improve.
Yeah, I just know that obviously the last previous quarter was 106, it's 112, and it's only a couple of days and whatever. But it is really good that he's way under. It's just that it just seems an inordinate amount of time for people to wait. So yeah, it's definitely good that it's definitely going in the right direction. But yeah, it's a difficult one, I understand.
Yeah, you need to. Sorry, Chair. You have to have the official assessment done. Then, once the assessment's done, that approves that they meet the criteria for the disabled facilities grant. The work that then has to be an assessment of the property, and then get the works done. It's just perhaps government and the public sector not working as quickly as we could, but there's just due process again because it's public funds.
Thank you. Councillor King.
Yeah, so it's just on the table on page 32. So last time we reviewed the percentage of council tax and business rate collected, which was last quarter, I was told the reason for not collecting 43% of council tax and business rates was because there's a cost of living crisis. Now, you've spoken about the cost of living crisis today. what I'm just unsure about is why the cost of living crisis was impacting collection rates then, and it doesn't seem to be now.
It is, Will. You can see that the percentage of council tax collected is slightly under. Again, this is a timing issue as well, because we can only have collected a certain amount during the year. I was at a Lancashire leaders meeting last week or the week before, I can't remember now, weeks passed quickly. Every district authority in Lancashire is seeing somewhere between a 0.2 and 0.4% reduction in their collection rates of both council tax and business rates, which is attributed to the cost of living crisis that we're all experiencing at the moment. And we're all working together to see wherever possible we can add additional interventions and support to whether it's an individual or a business, to get the collection rates up. So you'll see we're 84.7% collection rate at the moment, but with the targeted 85.1. And on business rates, the target is 81.2, and we're at just about 81, so about 0.2% below the business rate. It's where we targeted to be. And again, this is using historic data year on year to set those targets. And on council tax, we're about 0.3% behind where we should be.
So this is just what's puzzling me a little bit, because you've just said yourself that it's impacting councils by 0.2 or 0.4%, but we were previously missing targets by 25% to 30%. Now, obviously, it's got better, but what I'm wanting to know is, what was the issue before that's different now? Because it just looks to me like there was a problem before that hasn't been communicated transparently.
Well, quite strong words there, Will. I think there's a lack of understanding here, because we wouldn't function. LCC wouldn't function if we had a 25% delay in collection of council tax and business rates. We've never had that level of non-collection. It is always 0.2, 0.4%. And if you remember last time, it was a very small amount that we calculated, but there has never been a lapse of us collecting 25% or being 25% behind on our collection rates ever that I'm aware of.
The last quarter, your target was 85%. You achieved 57%. That's for council tax. For business rates, your target was 81%. You achieved 56%. So can you explain to me what is causing this difference is what I'm asking. I don't think I'm asking an unfair question here. I think it's just what was the problem before, just so we can scrutinise it, so we know in future what to look out for any future council leader or yourself if we come across that problem again. I think it's quite a fair question.
It's a lack of understanding of the data, Will. So the last quarterly report was halfway through the year. So we couldn't have possibly collected more than 50% of it's alive data. So if we're at that point in the cycle, we're 6 months into the tax year. So we are reporting how much of the overall council tax we've collected after 6 months, which was 50, or I can't remember the figure, which is 50%, which is where you'd expect us to be. We can't collect 100% of it in the first 6 months, because it's done generally by direct debits. I think businesses pay monthly and individuals pay 10 monthly for their council tax. So how it's presented is the overall target is the figures that you see, and then because I can't ever see how we would have expected to collect 80% of council tax after 6 months.
Just final comment on this. I fully can understand the data, and hence why it's saying in here, when you tell me you can't collect 50% of it, you did. You collected 56% of it. I understand the numbers quite well. All I'm asking is what was causing difference. We don't seem to be getting the answer. Maybe it's one for another session.
So I'll get a note from the Chief Finance Officer, if you will, that talks through this, because we collect council tax and business rates every month, and we report on that. I can absolutely assure this committee that our council tax and business rate collection rates are absolutely where they need to be, And I do believe actually, I think there was a paper that's just gone in front of Lancashire County Council as well, with all the different rates for every different authority, and we perform relatively well in comparison to our neighbouring authorities. But if there are no issues, it's just how the data is being analysed.
Thank you. And that brings us to an end to our questions from the committee. Are there any questions from members not on committee? No hands up there. I don't think we've got any members of the public here to ask any questions, so therefore can we please formulate the recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Some of the themes from the discussion tonight that the committee might like to recommend. The committee thanks the leader and director for the detailed report and answering questions. The committee welcomes the report and performance of the council during Q3. The committee asks for further information to be provided on the community assets framework. The committee looks forward to receiving more robust information on the digital skills training indicator, customer relationship management system project, and the printing strategy. The committee encourages all members to attend a learning session on the partnership data dashboard arranged for the 18th of March. The committee commends the work with the Skills Factory project. The committee asks for further reports to include more detailed progress information on the council's major projects, such as the Leyland Town deal and Jubilee Gardens, and also the number of people in temporary accommodation. And finally, the committee welcomes the offer of more information being provided on the council tax and business rate collections. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Darren. Can we approve those recommendations? Okay, thank you. And thank you very much. We are going to move now to item 6, which is the scrutiny review of Building Better Home and Neighbourhoods update. We had the leader of the council again, Councillor Paul Foster, who will present the report, supported by Lizzie Hindle, Head of Planning and Enforcement. Welcome to you, Lizzie. Can I invite the leader of the council to provide a brief introduction to the report?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So it's as I say, it's progress being made towards the agreed recommendations from your committee that were then taken to Cabinet quite a few months ago. There's an awful lot of detail against each one of the recommendations, Chair, and we're happy to take any queries you may have.
Thank you. I'll start on page 34, paragraph 13, recommendation 1, RE, the local plan. Is there an update on whether the local plan member working group is going to be reconstituted, or how members are being engaged in the local plan development process?
Yeah, thanks. I know it's something that Councillor Flannery was looking at, Chair. And now I've asked Councillor Watkinson has taken on this portfolio now. But I just would quickly like to thank Councillor Flannery for all his efforts over the last the period. With the planning portfolio, he did a great job and will be missed working alongside us due to his work commitments. Whether or not a member working group will be established or not, I don't know, Chair. But what I can say is all local members will always be fully engaged with the progress of the local plan. And we're getting to the period now, as the report states, where there's an awful lot of work being done, and it's clearly right and proper that local members get heavily involved and consulted on the proposals that are being brought forward.
Thank you. Have we got any ideas of how we might do that in terms of the engagement process? Well,
we've undertook one consultation, haven't we? And I'm looking at Lizzie I think there's another consultation process to go through. And then ultimately, when the final sites come forward, along with the policies, they go out for a detailed consultation again before it goes back to the planning inspector.
Yeah, the next stage is Regulation 19, when the sites will be put forward for a final consultation.
Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Welcome, Lizzie. Nice to see you. I'm at a bit of a loss with this, and I suppose Councillor Foster may agree when I say I've probably been around too long. But I remember previous iterations of the local plan. And not only have we had a member working group that's met throughout those processes to deal with a lot of the detail, but we've also had regular meetings with all 50 councillors. And all 50 councillors have been invited to like a learning hour or a similar session to actually look at various stages as it's gone forward, and in particular, proposed sites that have come forward, and members have had an opportunity to say, well, yes, that site potentially could work. There might be some issues in terms of infrastructure, but it could work. That site there, just we believed, is a non-starter for whatever reasons, and that one's got some real challenges, but it's a possibility, and you might be able to get it to work if you do X, Y, and Z, or it might be one for safeguarding or whatever. And there has genuinely been engagement with all members from the different areas of South Ribble, looking at their own particular area and looking at it in political groups and so on. There doesn't seem to have been that throughout the development of this local plan to date. And whilst we're not even being reassured this evening that we're getting a member working group, which I think would be helpful, but we need some real clarity of when the 50 elected members are going to be consulted on sites that are coming forward. When are we going to see the maps? When are we going to be shown the sites that we are looking at and the detail, and have an opportunity as members who are member champions for particular areas, who know our own communities well? When are we going to have that opportunity to have some real input, which I genuinely think can add value to the local plan process? We know that the local plan is miles behind where it should be at this stage, but to get it back on track, we need to get things moving and get buy-in from the 50 members. So I'm just wondering if you can offer something as reassurance on how we're going to move forward with this.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Green. So you remember up until May, there was a local plan working group in place, but then there's the issue of confidentiality came out during the election, where there was misinformation that had been gleaned from the local plan working group that was shared and caused quite a lot of angst, shall we say, in certain areas of our communities. So that was a concern for the council and the administration about the lack of confidentiality, because clearly, please remember these, and you know this, Michael, these sites are not council sites. The sites that have been put forward are sites from developers. Some will be far more controversial than others, but Lizzie and the team have to go through diligently each one confidentially and come up with a conclusion whether they're appropriate or not. The moment that we're in a position that to engage members and share with members, we will absolutely do so. But what we have to ensure is the probity and the confidentiality of the work that the team are doing. It's also been, as you're aware, Michael, it's been challenging with legislation as well from government about are the targets, are they not targets, and how we achieve those targets. So please rest assured, I know it's a priority for Councillor Watkinson now and Lizzie and the team. As soon as there's information, appropriate information that can be shared, that's also gone through the appropriate amount of due diligence from the officers, because the other thing that we don't want to present to you is anything that's inaccurate either, or any sites that have been put forward that clearly aren't appropriate for development for the authority. So as soon as that work's done and it's ready, we can have a confidential session for all members, and there'll be a detailed update on where we are at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Pillinger.
This is the table which starts at the bottom of page 34 and row 1 continues at the top of page 35. A little bit strange because the row is split between 2 pages. I'm looking at the second paragraph down in the third column, the column comments and timeline, a paragraph which begins good progress has already been made in drafting the policies. And this is about design policies. and the fact that the leading agency for that is Preston City Council's Urban Design Officer, what sort of input are we getting? How much influence does South Ribble have on achieving the task group's aims?
Yes, the design work has been led by Preston City Council because they have got an urban designer in the team, and obviously all the three councils do feed into that. The design policies will come forward through the local plan, and we are working on drafting those policies at the moment. We've probably drafted about half of them. Once we've done that, we need to share between the team, obviously make tweaks and amendments, and after that, that's when they will be shared with members. But that input in terms of design is key for planners, and we do need to work quite hard on those policies to make sure it works for all three different areas.
Councillor Green.
Thanks, John. Would it be in order if I offer something by way of clarity as I chaired the original task group?
Okay.
Yeah, it's just to assess Councillor Pillinger. So the very idea that we believed in having this charter accreditation scheme was over and above whatever the local plan came up with. It was almost a race to the top to try to put pressure indirectly on builders to actually offer schemes and come up to, say, a gold accreditation, so that then other builders will be expected to do likewise and ultimately push up standards for the residents of South Ribble. So that was the thinking that the four of us as task group members had on this. But the understanding is that will take place after the local plan is put in place, because they're obviously very busy developing that at the moment. I hope that helps to clarify. Thank you.
Councillor Foster, yeah.
It's a really valid point that Michael makes as well. Ultimately, any design charter that we do try and progress with local developers and builders is somewhat, it's not necessarily legally enforceable, Pete. You know, we do need the binding support of these individuals because we're asking for something over and above what's necessarily within planning legislation. But as Michael says, it's absolutely something you should drive for, because I think we've all seen it up and down the country. There's some wonderfully good looking, if that's the right word, architecturally pleasing housing developments, and there's some woeful ones. And so driving up the design standards is something that we need to strive for. But ultimately, it's not backed off by national legislation. So it's get as Lizzie says, get the local plan to a point where we can, and then drive forward this charter and invite partners to come and work with us.
Thank you. Councillor Howarth.
Yeah, something I'm sure is close to the hearts of all of us, carbon neutrality. Could you confirm whether the local plan will include this commitment from the review report? And that's page 35, the second rod of the table.
Yeah, I'll have the first slide. So,
Oh, sorry.
There's an absolute commitment, David. The challenge we have here, and I think it's across the whole local plan, is if targets, any new government changes any of the targets that are in legislation now, or changes any planning policy, it's going to have an impact on our local plan, because our local plan's going down to the inspector for endorsement, I think next year, Liz, is it June next year? And there was a lot of unknowns, David. So what we can work to, and what we are working to as a team, is the current legislation, because that's all we can work to. But you've seen yourself in the past 6-12 months where that legislation and commitment has changed, and it provides awful challenges for the team, because it's such a complex delivery. This is this local plan, and it's got to be fixed and governed by planning policy and legislation. So when the targets change, it becomes a huge issue for us. Hence one of the reasons why the plan isn't necessarily working to the original programme from a few years ago. But all we can say is that we work to what we have currently. I think any member sat here today would readily accept, whichever the colour of the government is after the election, is that there could be further planning policy changes and guidelines, and the impact that might have on our local plan could be significant. That's why we're pushing to make sure we hit the deadlines that we're that we're working to now. But we have a commitment, absolutely.
Councillor Green.
Thank you. Looking at the recommendations, would it be possible for us to have an update on any recommendations not actioned in 6 months' time, with a clear timeline of the outstanding recommendations, and also looking through some of these, some of them have been partially completed and some not fully, and further work needs to be done on them. So we probably need this to come back in about 6 months' time just to see where we are, and be able to address it in detail rather than signing them off at this stage.
Well, absolutely, Michael. And it may be that is an appropriate time in a few months that we can provide the committee with a more detailed update on the local plan as well. If we pushed it to the June, July, if we pushed it to the summer, it could well be that we have enough information then that, as well as sharing and updating on the recommendations and where we're up to with implementing them, but also a wider update on the progress and process of the local plan. I'm more than happy to volunteer that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to an end in terms of questions from members on the committee. Are there any questions from members not on committee? No. We don't have any members of the public here, so can we please formulate the recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Some of the themes from the discussion tonight that the committee might like to recommend. The committee thanks the leader and head of service for attending and answering questions. The committee asks that further consideration be given to engaging members more in the development of the local plan. The committee welcomes the progress being made on implementing the recommendations. And finally, the committee asks for a further progress report being provided in 6 months' time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Darren. Can we all agree on those recommendations? Great stuff. Thank you. And thank you to Councillor Foster and Lizzie for attending tonight. We are going to move on to item 7, committee matters and the task group update. First of all, from Councillor Williams about homelessness.
Thank you very much, Chair. We had a first meeting around the task group, and after a group discussion, I was appointed chairman. We were waiting for initial sign off of the scoping document, which I believe will be ready very, very shortly. We've got a catch-up meeting this Thursday. After that, we'll be looking at booking in time with the cabinet member and other interested parties, and obviously there's quite a lot of experience on the council that we may look to help feed into it. As regards to the themes of the theme of the task group, it's not really looking at homelessness as such, the causes of it. It's more whether we can bring together certain agencies together and look at best practice in other areas that may assist the teams and how we deal with it at the minute. We're looking for quite a short time scale to report back. Obviously this isn't an urgent thing we need to be getting on with, so we're looking roughly about 3 months of looking to report by the end of June, July time. So that's where we are at the minute.
Thank you very much. Councillor Howarth on the cultural strategy.
We've now had our first scoping meeting. Everybody else took one step backwards, so I ended up as chair. We did a round the room session as to what experience everybody had. We then considered what culture effectively embraces. Apparently we have a director responsible for culture, but not a strategy for him to implement or her to implement. We noted that there isn't one particular cabinet member responsible for a cultural strategy. It tends to be spread out. And we considered whether people not on committee may well be invited who could make a contribution, although we didn't want the committee to be too big to be unworkable. And as a starting point, we agreed to send a questionnaire out to all members of the council.
Thank you. Sounds like a good start on both. Item 7B is meetings and training attended by committee members. I don't think we have had anyone attending, but please, if you do see anything which you do want to attend, or if you do want to know potentially what training sessions are out there, then please contact myself or Darren. And then we do have the Cabinet Forward Plan. Members are asked to flag up anything that might be interested in considering. Anything on that from members of the committee? No. Okay. This is the last meeting of the council year. So we will see you in the next council year potentially.